Hello, I'm Pac-Man.
And I'm like the bald, shiny-headed guy over here who's gonna say, "Welcome to Living the Line Reacts."
How you doing, man? I never get to see your face like I do on those thumbnails. Can we try some right now?
Oh, are we gonna do? I was getting ready. I'm gonna do some of the ones that we recorded last week, and I was thinking for the Brechia one, like with the razor, just like something slicing with the razor. Um, I don't know what was. Oh, my Jim Lee face was just gonna be like, yeah. So
and
yeah.
then there's and then there's the one that you'll never get to see because YouTube has the stupidest copyright takedown policy that's ever existed in the entire history of the world.
Yeah.
So some French news network can deprive you of the two of us talking about Neil Adams and Mobius and
And who was the
Joe
third?
Kubert.
Yeah, Kubert. We didn't
Eh,
get to the Bushima Adams Moebius one. But
Well, now
tack sucks, and you will never you will never see those videos. But luckily there is a series that we've already put one up from and not a got a copyright strike. So we're gonna blaze through the whole thing eventually.
let's do
And
it.
this is way cooler anyways because it's funnier. I'm gonna have to let's make sure that we share with sound because I know Sean wants to hear Mr. Stan Lee as he berates and harasses, and I'm assuming he's gonna try and steal Spawn from Todd McFarlane because look at that Spawn poster back there.
Wow. Well, this is very
Props
interesting.
props to the image guys for knowing exactly what was going to happen, coming in and tolerating Stan Lee as he tries to steal their work, laughing, keeping straight faces the entire time, knowing how bad they're just about to fuck these guys over after they recorded a commercial for that image.
We should be clear again. We've never seen these or I've never seen this anyway. It's possible Carson saw it 20 years ago or something, but
Long time ago, I've seen these. Yeah,
this is a live reaction.
a long time ago.
You want to get over to the board? Yep. Here we go.
We're gonna head on over to the board.
Okay, Todd, why don't we come over here and let you do your thing?
My thing. Okay, one
Create
of
some
the
properties.
first things
Stan's doing his thing, leaning against the board.
This would just be the Todd McFarlane how to do comic books, and then I'll get into some of the technical things. And one of the things is that if they say we got, let's say, Spider-Man swinging over the city, I've seen 100 times. Now this isn't going to be that complicated, but I've seen 100 times done before. Here, we'll make Spider-Man here.
Todd's playing
I'll
along
get a
with the
little more
marker.
fine ones. But
Right.
let's just say
Jim
here's the
wouldn't.
body here with a little spider on it. Here's the groin area. But then what they do is they put like a leg here, and they bend a leg here. Okay, it was a fine bend or whatever. And then he's holding the webbing up in here, and the other
So
one maybe
boxy.
he's holding the webbing up in here, and he's got some nice little webbing going here. Now, the one thing I try to tell people is that we're drawn on 2 dimensions, and we've got to give the illusion of 3 dimensions. And I think that a lot of kids, the artists that they like the best, they probably don't even really know why they.
So Todd just did a bad drawing, which we watched Stan ask Jim Lee to do, and Jim Lee
Right.
couldn't do a bad drawing.
Right.
Todd can actually do a bad drawing.
Oh yeah, like genuinely. Yeah. This
Yeah.
is fantastic to see.
It's that's how you know he's really good. It's like an actor who can pretend that they can't act.
Right. If you asked me to draw Spider-Man, by the way, this is what it would look like without any kind of reference or acting it out. I would have to jump around the room prior to, getting the. Okay.
Maybe Todd will jump. Maybe he's a really good at yoga.
Cool capes. But one of the things is the good artists
Cool capes.
take a figure like this and run the camera all around it and move it all over. The reason I don't like this, and it's good for the beginner who's trying to learn and put all the anatomy, is this is Spider-Man swinging over the city. I can get a sandwich board, 2 big pieces of plywood, and I can put one in front of him and one in back of him. And it wouldn't bother. You know what I mean? I could put a big rubber band and he could still swing because there's no foreshortening, there's nothing else there. So one of the things that I like to get the kids to think about is to give as many planes as possible, since this is only 2-dimensional right here. We've got to make it 3-dimensional. So one of the things that I try to get the kids to think about is
McFarlane
if you're going to
foreshortening.
have somebody slugging somebody or swinging or whatever, but the first thing we'll do, let's say if I was going to draw back, here would be the collarbone, the top of the collarbone. This would be the back up in here. like this. Now, because let's say the Spidey emblem was here or whatever, we want to make the head off center, because if it's on center, when everything looks polite, then the picture looks way too polite. So if we can get...
It's really interesting to me that McFarlane seems to be, I don't know, maybe again, he's just doing a demo, but he seems very prone to like this block construction. And his final work is always, I always thought he was one of the kind of oddly rounder artists. Like his muscles are always a bit round and stuff. So it's surprising for me to see that he's starting so much with just like perspective.
A guy's head off the center of his body right up in here, then we've given the illusion now that his head is in front of the shoulder up in here.
Oh, I thought he was going to put the head over here.
We'll put one, let's say we'll make a foot right here, and since we got to have the foot here, well, the only way we can get his butt back here,
Todd!
back up in here, and then his leg is going to go back in here. We'd make his arm, let's say, come here, and as a matter of fact, let's even cut it in front of his face, and then kink his wrist here, and then kink all the fingers even. I mean, the fingers are like 3 or 4 planes in and of themselves.
I hope this is how it happens every time for him.
I know they don't, but the point that I'm trying to get at with kids, okay, then we'd have, let's say, a leg foreshortened back here.
He's really he's going way extreme.
Webbing back in here. Now, the point I'm trying to make, and I know this is rough for the kids, I can come up a little bit later, is that if I put a hand in front of a face, I've given the illusion that there's this plane, but there's depth in it, that his face is back here. Now, one arm's going this way, one arm's going this way.
But even the fact that he keeps saying planes, you know, plane is you're usually saying planes when you're referring to something that's more rectilinear. Like on an arm, I mean, you can do planographic like breakdowns of things, but you usually don't talk about bodies. And so it's interesting that he seems to start from that very rectilinear kind of point.
Kink the wrist. I've given 3, and I can get another 3 on the fingers and another 3 on this finger. I can give you 15 planes.
He's definitely doing this in his studio while he's drawing.
Head off center, and I put an arm back in here, I've got to hide part of the arm. So
how much of that do you think comes from him playing baseball?
I was just wondering that, throwing a slider.
Now giving the illusion that this guy's warping all over the place. It becomes a tough thing, and part of it is I get paid to draw 10 hours a day, so you know, I mean, you get better and better and better. If you look at some of my early stuff, I wasn't able to do that. But one of the gimmicks that I try to tell kids is to literally just take two pieces of lines, or 2 drawings of lines, whatever. Okay, we'll go one's here and we'll go one here, and squeeze a body in there, because if you squeeze a body in there, then you can probably twist them in any way. So now I've got 2 lines here. I mean, even now I'm going to maybe put myself in a bad spot. But what I'll do here is we'll make this his kneecap right in here.
You'll need a lot of kinking for this one.
Oh, yeah, lots of kinking, and there's lots of foreshortening. So then I can come
okay, I
down
see where
here.
he's going with it.
I'll
I
have
think,
the
I don't
foot
know,
in
that
here.
had surprised me.
This other foot can come, this would be...
That's the foot?
I'll maybe make
Nope,
the other foot
I have no
back in here.
Oh,
I'll have
okay.
his body twisted over this way, with one of his arms coming up over here, and then I draw
Holy
his head
shit.
up and over here. Here's a big eyeball, cool.
Oh,
And
I
then
get it now.
And
That's
then I have
great.
maybe one of his arms up
I
in
thought
here
it had
hidden.
to fit
If he's
into
got
it.
a
What
belt,
was he going to put up
make
here?
the belt running off around his
It's a
waist.
spider
If he's
dick.
got a rope. Make
Yeah,
it
is
go
that his
down.
dick?
He's got a cape, even better. I mean, a cape's the easiest way to give action to something that's not happening. I can make a Batman or Superman
Did Stan
again
just
standing there
fart?
doing nothing, but the cape's rippling all
You've
over.
got to have that wind blowing the cape
So there's an
dramatically.
illusion that actually
He
standing there in the
did.
wind, so there's some dimension even with the wind.
I
and
gotta
stuff
go
like that.
back.
What I do back in here, I've got to hide part of the arm. So by shoving a hand directly at the camera that's real big and one back, or twist, I draw his head up and over here. Here's a big eyeball, cool.
Oh,
And
I
then
get it now.
And
That's
then I have
great.
maybe one of his arms up in here hidden. If he's got a belt, make the belt running off around
Well, that's
his
a
waist.
belt.
If he's got a rope, make it going. If he's got a cape, even better. I mean, a cape's the easiest way to give action to something that's not happening. I can make a Batman or Superman.
Yeah, did you hear that?
Yeah.
And then watch him shift. And then he talks about blowing wind. I think we just caught Stanley on video farting, everybody. Listen real careful. We'll turn it up.
No,
And
that's
then I have
great.
maybe one of his arms up in here hidden. If he's got a belt, make the belt running off around his waist. If he's got a rope, make it going. If he's got a cape, even better. I mean, a cape's the easiest way to give action to something that's not happening. I can make a Batman or Superman, again, standing there doing nothing, but the cape's rippling all over.
You've got to have that wind blowing the cape.
So there's an illusion that actually standing there in the wind, so there's some dimension.
And he
even with the
totally
wind and
moved
stuff
away.
that.
He's like,
But I
I'm not
do,
going to
because
claim that
the
one.
character I've been drawing, Spider-Man doesn't
And
have
Tom's
a cape,
like,
and I
what
love
the
guys
fuck?
with cape because it's the easiest gimmick. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to know anatomy, because what you do is you kind of put the cape over the leg. That's why Batman's easy to draw, because you just cover
So
the
far,
body.
Todd-
Anything you're not good at drawing, you
Oh,
cover
you
with the
hide,
cape.
you hide it. Oh, yeah. So from the very beginning. But because
Todd's
he
the
doesn't
only
have a
one
cape,
that can
well, all
out-talk
I
him.
can do is...
I know, right? It's going to say
if I'm
that.
going to do a spider web, I'm not just going
The
to have...
stand quotient. I can't even
I'm
get
gonna have
anything
the
in.
spider web come here, hidden behind a leg, twisted upon itself, just like a rope, coming back up in here, and then maybe even wrapping back up and around him up in here. So now, even the illusion I've given of depth with the spider web helps to all the different ways that I've twisted and I've contorted the body. Another thing is that sometimes people, like you're saying, get too tied down with like the realism of what makes a comic book and stuff. Some people kind of...
Yeah, he makes
I get a
me
lot of kids, as a matter of
nervous.
fact, and
Yeah.
I've been able to, I guess, baffle them with my BS, and they call it a style now. Thank you, kids. But they go, wow, you put in so much detail. You do this, you do that. My detail doesn't amount to anything. It's not anything. And I always tell people, I don't care if you can draw a good building or a good car. You got to draw Superman first. So I've yet to have a kid run up to me going, Toddy, you draw the coolest 57 Buicks I've ever seen. No. They go, wow, that was a cool Spider-Man. That was a cool Superman. That was a cool rutabaga guy. And if you can draw a good Buick 57 behind him and a good building and a good tree, all the better. But I've seen guys that can only draw good superheroes and can't draw very good Buick 57.
Stan hates
and
him
they're
because
still
he
great artists.
can't do
Let
his
me ask
bits.
you about the webbing. Aren't you the first guy to make a work of art out of the webbing? I mean, to start making the webbing look as if it was three-dimensional?
I believe in giving credit where credit's due. I pulled the idea when I was collecting comics.
By the way, I've had a student use the term webbing to mean getting women pregnant. So be careful how you use the term webbing. She accused someone else in class of like being out there webbing, and he
Ooh.
needed to quit webbing.
Comic book. There
All
was
right.
a shot that was done years ago. They did a portfolio shot. An artist by the name of Michael Golden did a shot.
Michael Golden. There we go.
And as
Yeah.
funny as it was, I saw them when I was maybe 18, and I broke into comic books when I was 24. That I saw that shot, and I go, if I ever break into comic books, and if I ever work for Marvel, and if I ever draw Spider-Man, I'm going to remember that.
Really? I didn't know
and by
that.
fluke, I ended up getting to
And I'm gonna do it all the time.
draw Spider-Man.
You know, Todd,
And I never-
Todd is nothing if not committed. If we could just take a second, he's just gonna bulldoze over us the entire time. He's done this chalk talk. I mean, I don't know if this is like a portfolio review spiel or whether this is like a visiting schools spiel or a talking to younger cartoonists spiel. But he's got, I mean, obviously is a very loquacious gentleman and has very strong opinions that he's willing to back up, but also is just rehearsed so many portions of this. It's very interesting to see it, but yeah, it's like fairly intimidating.
Well,
wall of text.
it is. And listening to the kayfabe guys interview him whenever they did that, I think it was them. He was telling them that back when he was at conventions, he was famous, like in the Image days. I think still he was famous for never leaving. He would do the 8 hours without taking a food or bathroom break. And so I can imagine him that being there. Yeah, like really, I'm there for that interaction to give myself. And yeah, I bet he was given a lot of good advice.
I also wanted to just interject. We haven't really, made a lot of commentary on this yet, but McFarlane, in my estimation, is along the same lines of one of the things that I kind of quipped when we were talking to Alex Ross, where if you have skills of a certain level, you get to be listened to, or you should be listened to on certain types of things. This is a guy who was wildly successful in 3 different fields, which is almost unheard of. Totally different fields. Absolutely totally different fields. Like could have been, was very close to being a pro ball player when he was very young, has been a obviously wildly successful illustrator and wildly successful business person who took very, very unorthodox steps to do that. And I find this to be very interesting, thinking about that other success that's in the future for him here. At this point, he's a two he's a two skill guy, you know. And this video is likely a stage of that third skill acquisition, you know.
Yeah, the fact that he has Spawn back there, he's probably the one that arranged this for all of them.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. And you're right, that makes him someone worth listening to. Like, if you want to be successful, you listen to these things.
I never forgot that. I got a memory like an elephant on a lot of things. So I pulled it out. Now, Michael Golden did the first version of it. The only thing that I can take credit for is that I popularized it. You know, I did it so much. I call it spaghetti webbing because Tom DeFalco, the editor at Marvel Comics, that's what he dubbed it one day when he didn't really like it. He goes, I don't like those spaghetti webbing, so I'm going. So now I curse him by calling it spaghetti webbing and getting the kids to call it spaghetti webbings.
But he just gave a lesson. You're right. He gave a lesson there, like 2 lessons in a row. One is I know a good thing when I see it and I'm going to remember it,
right?
But also not be a douche. Like, I'm going to give credit where it's due, right? And
I think there's a third lesson is if you try to screw me by calling me a name, I'm going to go ahead and embrace the name that you've got and make it the name of the thing you're trying to criticize.
Yeah, that was going to be my second one. The first one is like, remember a good thing and give credit. Right. And that could be 2 lessons on its own. And then, the other one is so I almost said it before he said that, but there's something Trump-like about him too, in like establishing his brand.
Right.
And that's exactly like the Eminem and 8 Mile and the Trump move, which is I'm going to just take the name calling and make that my strength. Yeah.
Bug Tommy sometimes, but the reason I did what I did with it was that the old.
Why don't you just do a little of the webbing, because there may be some people watching that haven't seen it.
Okay.
They wonder what we're talking about.
The old way they used to make it, if this was Spider-Man's hand here, and here's his finger, and here's his finger, and here's his thumb, and he's kind of squirting it out.
He's got the craziest sketches.
Just lines like this, and then they used to kind of put X's in it. And it worked for years and years and years, but the only thing about this is if I try to shoot that towards the camera, again, with the plane, all you get is bigger X's, you know, and I couldn't use it. So I go, I got to come up with a way, and I remember the way that Michael Golden did it, that I can actually shoot it towards the camera and it doesn't lose what it's supposed to be. Now, I'm kind of psychotic, again, with the way that I do the webbing. If you actually look at one of my drawings, it's continued. There's one strand that literally continues from beginning to end. Most people probably don't follow it.
But very analytical.
Right.
Like, oh, I can't take this approach because for this extra depth that I'm trying to get, it doesn't work, you know. Like, within all of that energy and my, it's very analytical.
That's flavorous. And what I would do is I'd come in here and I'd give it about 2 or 3 strands, and then I come in there with one single strand here, and I'd wrap it again. By wrapping it in and out, I give a illusion even to something as stupid and as trivial as the webbing. Then maybe I'd come in here and I'd maybe give it 2 or 3 ropes. And whenever you wrap something, it doesn't necessarily mean they're all up. I can give one down, one big, one small. I continue the webbing in between here, bring it down here again, and then bring this back around up like this, and so on and so on. Sometimes it takes me 2 hours just to do the webbing in one.
Sam Keith's taking a note.
That I started doing this. I can't go back now, because if I don't, then the kids are going to say, you're getting lazy, you're getting lazy. But in a lot of terms, I think it's good. And one of the things.
And him and Liefeld, both the kids, like very aware the target audience. And he's explaining the cross contour thing, right? Like, just make the lines curve to give them depth.
I don't want to go too far down this cul-de-sac here, but the Michael Golden multiple call-outs here using his name, I mean, that has significance for that, and it's a very like team sport kind of thing to do. You know, like he is giving ups to the guy who boosted him up, gave him the technique that this is a very like turnabout is fair play kind of move here.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say earlier, I guess. And then you see that carry over in the image, like I'm taking everyone with me, because it, like, he understands as a businessman, like people use quid pro quo often like in a bad way, but
Right.
the best way to get things done is like make it worth both people's while.
Yeah.
That's just synergy, and he
Right.
understands that. You're right that probably came from playing a team sport. That's interesting.
Things I try to shy kids away from too is I go, I can draw 2 books, I could draw 3, I'm fast. I believe you should do 1 dynamite book instead of 3 average books, because in the long run it's going to pay off for you.
Couldn't agree with you more.
And what ends up happening is that people sometimes water themselves
Says
down.
the man who wrote.
Could I draw this a faster way? You darn right. So I could cross the lines. I could do this. I didn't even have to draw this. This is a heck of a lot faster, XXXX. But I figured if I did something that was a little bit different, again, my career was
I'm very
budding.
happy
I have
to share his
let people
tricks.
notice me so that I get another job, is if I labor over this today, down the line, I think it will pay dividends down the line. A lot of people seem to be short-sighted on a lot of things. So
How does it feel to know that someday in the future they'll talk of you as the man who popularized 3-dimensional perspective webbing? I mean, boy, that's a distinctive trait. Nobody else will have anything like that.
Well, I guess the one thing that's nice
Stan perfecting the complimentary insult here, by the way. You know,
That's all you're going to be remembered for, buddy. He's like, yeah, you just wait till that Spawn book comes out. Stan.
I wanted to do a body of work on Spider-Man, and I felt that that Steve Ditko, who we were talking about earlier, and John Romita both were on the books that they did a body of work. That it would be nice, if nothing else, that 25 years from now, when they throw out 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 names on Spider-Man, on the artistic side of it, that maybe my name might also be in there, because I added something to that character. You know what I mean?
Well, you
that maybe
certainly
something
did.
that maybe something will be there that somebody can come along. On the downside, I hate to say it, Stan, on the downside is because it becomes so popular, a lot of the people following now in the Spider-Man steps were they wanted me to draw like John Romita, and I said no, again, out of respect. If I was younger, I probably would have done it. But again, I was at that cocky stage going, no, I want to do it my way or the highway. That kids are now starting to come in there and starting to draw it their own way, and I'd like to caution kids, just because Todd did something popular or whoever else, do it your own way, because you might do something that might be 10 times more popular that nobody's thought of yet. And if you just keep emulating what's been down, you're never going to come up with that one that we go, oh, why didn't I think of that first?
I think that's probably the most important thing that we've been saying and you've been repeating during this particular show, and that is to do it their own.
Back here, it's Boof and the Bruise Crew. Did you ever read Boof?
No.
That was his other book that he released, and he got some guy who drew pretty close to him, but more cartoonified version.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Boof and the Bruise Crew. I love that book. It was the stupidest fucking thing.
Well, let's just say he is exactly on mark in terms of everything that he does. You know, he said better or for worse, it looks like him. It looks like me, right? He drew it his way. He did it his way. He did it his way. It's really hard to argue with that from the high, the perspective that we have now.
Oh, and he is Ditko, Romita, McFarlane,
right?
And I mean, to some extent, Eric Larson, but Larson was McFarlane kind of. He was the guy they brought in, and he has the same webbing. And Mark Bagley, I think, is the other one.
Yeah,
yeah. But the fact that he's like right in front of Stan, like being, hey, Ditko.
I was gonna say, hadn't even come up before in the conversation about a character, co-created by these 2 gentlemen. We haven't even mentioned the other gentleman.
Yeah.
Way, whatever they do it the best they can in their own style, because when you copy someone else, the best that you can be is a good copy.
Now, I'll go over a couple of the techniques that some of the kids
that's what I just said.
Get out of.
Thanks for restating that.
We've got a few pages here that I can show.
Excuse me, I just thought, can you imagine someone saying, yeah, so this is this guy, Todd Mcfarlane, that great artist, this is what he draws, and wondering.
Those are those Pictionary drawings, you know what I mean? You got to be in and out of there in 10 seconds. One of the things that I want to show to kids,
The quickies.
as long as you give a good establishing shot first, you can buffalo your way through any other page. So, in other words, if I'm going to have a guy flying through the air, here he is flying through the air, and he's looking really majestic, dun, 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 and he's flying here again in perspective. Let's not do it. And he's zipping 100 miles an hour, wang, wang, wang. I don't know that he's flying in the bathroom or where he's flying. The easiest thing I tell kids, if he's flying, let people have no doubt where the person is. Easiest thing to do, zip, 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 zip. We got clouds. Instantly puts them in the air. Better yet, throw a bird in there. And as a matter of fact, kids, don't throw the bird here. Throw a couple of small ones here, and then maybe throw a big one that might actually cut in front of the guy here. But then again, you've given the plane that there's depth. Even with the birds, there's depth there. Do your buildings here, and I always say do sliver backgrounds. There's 1,000 ways to do it. All you got to do is throw a little bit of a sliver of a building here, a couple windows, and now, I hate to say it, but there's no doubt, I don't care how blind you are, that this guy is not in the air. You got clouds, birds, and buildings. Well, of course the guy's up in the air. Once you ground him, then you've also got to do the same thing. You've got to ground him by showing something. Maybe the tree is behind him that's taller than him. Maybe the building is there, so a window's on top, and maybe
The other reason I think that Todd is probably the one that initiated this is he, like you said, seems to have a stock of this stuff.
Right.
And he's very much coming in ready to do an instructional video.
Yes.
Whereas in the other ones, the artists are like being goaded. And that's why Stan seems so much
He's more oppressive than the other
here.
videos. Yeah. Right. Yeah, here he's got the guy who actually is doing the thing, and once again, like, mad props here for him to be willing to just draw, as opposed to try to do something that looks good. He is demonstrating the things that he's talking about here. He's not trying to overwork anything. He's not trying to show off, and I think that's fair play there for Stan to bring attention to that as well.
Yeah, and I mean this is how I draw when I talk to my students too, because you're talking and drawing at the same time. You
Right.
are showing an idea. You're not sitting there doing a drawing demo.
Right.
Like, this is how I
car
do
is
things.
parked in front of
The
him. or
chewing
something.
gum wrapper on the sidewalk.
Yeah, anything that does it. Also, the other thing too is when you're moving people in and out of like a room, you want to move them in and out of a room in such a way that there's no, my first panel should be, if I'm going to show them, here's my first panel. Let's divide
And
this
comic
in.
artists should
My first
understand
panel
this
is there's
because you're
6 or 7
combining
people talking
words
in the
with
living room.
pictures.
First
Right.
thing is, well,
You're talking
what
and drawing.
living room? Well, of course, we've got to have the house here. So here's the house. And I know this is breaking your heart, kids, that this isn't really detailed, but we got a time thing here. I've got an establishing shot with the house. I next go into, okay, I'll do a little bit of a down shot. I'll do a down shot here of some of the furniture and some of the TV or whatever's there, and then I'll establish the people standing, maybe one standing here and a couple are sitting and
Stick
whatever
figures.
else. If somebody comes in or out of that room, you've got to show them. So, and you don't have to show them by literally the guy's turning the knob, walking in the door. If this person right here is pouring coffee, you can easily do it by, here's the person still pouring the coffee with the big smile on their face. Hi, how are you? Still pouring the coffee. Here's the coffee mug here. Still pouring it. Here's the billowing smoke. Looks really cool. Kids like it. And over the shoulder is the door, and you see the person walking in right in here. So it doesn't have to be so blatant that the guy's walking in. And that can be done if somebody says, excuse me, I got to go check something, that they can walk out. But you still have this person still talking. They've given all the information, because this is where the writer's going to write up in here. But you still have moved the action so this guy is left, even if it was behind their back.
And by showing him pouring the coffee and establishing that he's pouring coffee there, you've given a continuity to it, so it doesn't look as if it's just broken continuity. And one thing that you've done without thinking,
Yeah,
because
that's
it
what I was
comes
saying.
instinctively to you, you've put this small, even though this is small, you've put it right in the center of the panel in a place where the eye will go to it. You've kept space around it. You've got a curved line there. Everything in this panel, which you probably weren't even thinking of, the balloon here, the curved line here, this little bit of detail here, is focusing the eye on this small thing so you can't miss it, small as it is.
Okay.
Can we get a sample of that to start off every video?
Yeah. He's like, you're right. I am a genius. Thank you. That is what composition is all about.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
Whatever. It
go
seems
ahead.
to work. It seems to
know.
work. I mean,
But you've got a natural sense of layout, is what I'm trying to say, because the layout is so important. And very often a fellow will draw something small, and you lose it in the panel because it's small. But if it's laid out correctly, no matter how small it is, you can make it stand out. And as I say, you've done this automatically.
see, one of the other things I try to get kids to is no matter what the page is, there should be one impact panel. Now, maybe it's sometimes impossible to do, but that impact panel could be, like I said, if it's the person pouring the coffee, maybe I'd make the panel go from head to toe all the way up, and then I would have that dark eye, because it might have just said something like, you know, Joni's missing or something like that. I've got the deep eye here, do a nice reflection in there, do the big close-up, and then, like I said, I can do whatever it is. If they're smoking, I'll cut some of the smoke in and out of the panel. I might even have it actually break the borders of the panel. But even though they're saying, oh my gosh, Joni's missing, which is the writer's, you know, job to kind of get some of the interest in, that big riveting eyeball, you're going, oh, well, I mean, it must be something intense that they're saying at that point. If they got a scorn on their face, if they're going to laugh, really make them laugh. Let them know that they're not having a conversation. Some things they're going to say is going to be, you know, I'm concerned about this, but the next panel they can go, you're concerned about that. Well, you're always worried about that, you little Willie. And they can be saying something so they can even, you know, go from being kind of concerned to a kind of a joke within one panel, even though you're still bringing across all the information across that you're trying to get. Now, like I said, once you get to the action stuff, kids, good night. When you get to the action stuff, I've got a couple finished products here that might be
He's
a
like,
little more.
let's get back to promote my own
that
work
the kids
now,
can see what's
Stan.
happening
Oh,
here.
that's great.
Spider-Man here. Forget.
If he just like stray marked on that page with that marker, it'd be great. Another thing I'm thinking, you're talking about him as the businessman. He's also understanding like this is the 90s. We're moving into an audio visual culture and away from the books. So he's understanding that now this is like how to draw the Marvel way for a 90s kid.
Right.
You know, it's speaking to that
what
generation.
the dialogue says for the moment. I know he's not saying pass the tea and crumpet, though. You know, he's hunched over. His hands, as you can see, they're taut right here. And if I could show the veins in the hand, I would. This one's there. He's got that big bow-legged spread eagle that the superheroes do. And it's like, you can tell that he's not really in a good mood, whatever it is.
It's a tense situation.
Yeah, that he's there. And so when I'm saying, now, if what's in the background, who knows, you know? I do this artsy-fartsy stuff. Kids call it style, thank you again. And all of a sudden it fills up the page and the kids go, wow, look at all the details.
Artsy fartsy, he means just putting lots of ticky marks everywhere. His
This
stuff
is
go ahead.
This is a very Spawn panel here. This is about as Spawn as his Spider-Man ever got.
But like with Liefeld and Jim Lee, his sense of just like volume.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
that's why he keeps suggesting all these overlaps and things. The sense of depth and volume and weight and like, I mean, like even blurry, like awful shitty VHS tape and design, like his blacks and whites, his placement, that image still looks badass. It's
it does.
the worst reproduction of it possible.
Yeah, absolutely right. Imagine this as a marble sculpture, you know, say like 1.5 human size. I mean, this would, you know, if it was not of Spider-Man, this would be regarded, a marble sculpture of this would be a terrifying, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen any of the Roman copies of Greek bronzes, you know, made out of marble. But that's what I always think of when I see something like this, is something like the Heracles with his, you know, his leaning up against his giant club, or something like that, where the anatomical freedom that they had is essentially like, yeah, we know what all these muscles are, or maybe we don't, but we're just going to blow them up out of proportion. Like this is the godling version.
Yeah. It has a lot of Rodin in it too. Like Rodin has that very knotted, gnarled, like the
Sure.
hands, expressive hands, and the hands are bigger and the feet are bigger than they should be. Yeah, absolutely.
Look at all the detail. You do a little bit of silhouette, wow, look at all the detail. I do a lot of this line work.
But he's kind of saying like the detail doesn't matter, and that's exactly what is being proved by having such poor reproduction. Is it's the big slabs of black and white that are making this work.
And he's right about the planes too. I mean, he just pushes that back. He's just like, this is background. I'm going to use only vertical strokes to render this background. Maybe he's on fire. Maybe he's got a bunch of like full length gauze hanging from the ceiling. Like, it doesn't even really matter, right? It's pushed back.
Yeah. Out of focus.
A lot of cross hatching or something like that. Again, here's a body. Is he going to hold him up? Yeah, he's not holding him up right here, as you can see. He's holding him up straight over his head. I mean, you're going to pick a guy up, pick him up, hide the anatomy with the cape. Cool, he's out of there. Spider-Man shoots some webbing onto the back, so I've got to indicate that there's the webbing being attached to the flaming guy's head. So here's how you can tell it's the guy with the flame.
And here's that one strand of webbing you were talking about that goes all the way through.
It's a pain in the rear, right? And then when he pulls him off and says back off, he's pulling him off like 100 miles an hour. Here's little Spider-Man here. He's ripping him off. You know, he's not saying get out of the way like you and I would do. They're ripping them off.
Yeah, that Rodan, you're totally right. The length of that leg. That's exactly right. That the length of that leg, those tortured hands. I am with you, Rodan all the way. And he had that same volumetric, you know,
that kind of bubbly nature to the muscles. Yeah. McFarlane, brother, who artsy fartsy.
For my personal opinion on how to do.
I wonder where he learned all this from too. Like he never really talks about, other than I saw Michael Golden, like being a ball player. Was he? Because I know I've heard him talk about thinking more like a designer too, like a graphic designer.
Interesting.
Do superhero comic books only.
It's been wonderful having you here. I have to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody watching this cassette, and I'm hoping there will be millions of them, now realize why we call the series Visits with the Comic Book Greats, because you certainly are one of them, and it's been a pleasure being here with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
wow.
It's funny to see him promoting his own shit in the background too. It's smart.
Let's give Stan his credit there. So he didn't have to do anything for that one, right? And he backed off. He didn't try to take control of the conversation. He didn't try to make jokes the entire time. He didn't try to dominate or direct anything. You know?
I think that's just McFarlane, like, coming in and owning the room though too. Like, that's obviously, he just came in, and I think like kind of knew. Like I said, I get the sense that this was set up by him to some extent. Because I've seen the playlist now, and it's reminded me that there is one where like there's 4 or 5 of the Image guys are all there together collaborating on one too, which is the character Overkill that he does use in Spawn. I haven't rewatched it, but I saw that on the playlist, so I get a sense that McFarlane probably set this up.
What a coup!
He seems to have more agenda.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. What a coup! Is there anybody who ends up being on this tape that didn't go over to Image?
I don't know if it's like a volume 2 or something, but there's Sergio Aragona's, and there's Kurtzman and Jack Davis, which I'm really excited to watch that one.
Yeah.
And I think there's a Buscema one. But there's a Will Portasio, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane. Yeah.
Man,
they had the main group there. Yeah,
that is wild, absolutely wild, and a great watch. And don't you dare watch them without us. This is your only official channel right now. We're erasing these from YouTube. You can only watch it with us talking over it and pausing occasionally. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna get to all of them for sure. These are way too fun, and the historic aspect of knowing that this is happening right before Image is too much fun to watch as well. And seeing him, even recognizing Boof and the Bruise Crew back there, is really, really funny, because I would not have thought he had that ready to go. I thought that was like, shit, I'm really popular, I better crank something else out here.
Well, what do you think the odds are that someone else on this video series is going to push Stan in the chest? That maybe really exits.
And call him a little wiener or whatever he said. That's what I'm saying. I don't know that it's Stan behaving so much as McFarlane really being the alpha.
Yeah.
You know, he came in there with an agenda and knew what he was doing, and
Yeah.
and he's a motor mouth, and so he could. Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Good for you, Todd. I think you might be right now that McFarlane might win an MMA fight out of the original founders.
Yeah. You see those forearms?
Yeah. And
yeah. Yeah. He certainly has, let's say, winner energy. Yeah.
he does. But the only thing is Silvestri's 6'7", so
right. Okay.
And
Well,
he looks fit, but
we're not going to be able to compare them directly, unfortunately, against our Stanometer.
Yeah.
Because Silvestri is not in this video series, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But yeah, we'll call back to our interview with Al Gofa, where we end up discussing the Image founders and theoretical MMA fights for a long period of time before turning off the camera.
But I think you're right that McFarlane has that competitive spirit where he would keep getting back up.
Right. Yeah.
Like whether he had the size or not. So yeah, really, really enjoyed that one. We'll be interspersing other artists, but we will be spending a lot of time with this comic book great series because we're both really enjoying it. So hopefully you are too.
Awesome. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Make sure to like, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell.